Nathan's signature looked elegant on the restructuring documents, each loop of his name a practiced performance of authority. "The board meeting is tomorrow at 9, he said, still not meeting my eyes. "Sienna will present the new operational strategy. I think you'll find her approach refreshingly innovative." The air conditioning in our downtown Austin office fought against the July heat pressing through the windows, but sweat gathered at the base of my spine anyway. 12 years of marriage. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. 15 years building Apex Dynamics from a dream in a garage apartment to a $15 million AI analytics empire. And now he sat across from me, discussing my replacement as if we were negotiating vendor contracts. Sienna Park. 27 years old. Hired 8 months ago as a marketing coordinator. Now apparently qualified to run operations for a company whose entire technical infrastructure existed inside my mind. I watched Nathan's hand move across the paper, so confident, so assured. He had no idea about the documents waiting in Diana Foster's law office across town. He'd forgotten something crucial in his careful planning, something that would shatter this entire performance. I didn't own 48% of Apex Dynamics. I owned 58%. And tomorrow morning, he would learn exactly what that meant. 15 years ago, Nathan Cross and I made a promise to each other in a garage apartment that smelled like motor oil and ambition. The Austin summer heat made the space feel like a convection oven, and our 2 ancient laptops added their own warmth to the suffocating air. We were 26 and 29, broke and fearless, convinced we could revolutionize healthcare analytics if someone would just give us a chance. Nathan had the vision. I had the ability to make that vision breathe and move and think. He could walk into a room of skeptical investors and paint pictures of futures so vivid they'd reach for their checkbooks. I could write algorithms that turned those painted pictures into reality. Together, we were incendiary. The kind of partnership that made other entrepreneurs stop and stare, wondering what secret formula we'd discovered. The idea came to Nathan first, during his day job managing a sales team at a medical supply distributor. He'd spent months watching hospital administrators drown in data they couldn't parse, making decisions based on instinct rather than insight. "We're sitting on a gold mine nobody's mining," he told me one sweltering evening, pacing our cramped kitchen while I worked at a desk we'd cobbled together from a salvage door and 2 filing cabinets. "Every hospital in America has mountains of data. Patient outcomes, readmission rates, equipment usage, staffing patterns, supply chain metrics. But nobody's connecting the dots. Nobody's seeing the patterns that could save lives and millions of dollars simultaneously." I looked up from my screen, where I'd been debugging code for a freelance project that would pay our rent. My glasses were cheap plastic frames from a pharmacy, the prescription outdated because optometry appointments cost money we didn't have. You want predictive analytics for healthcare operations. Not just predictive. Prescriptive. A platform that doesn't just tell hospitals what might happen, but tells them what to do about it before it becomes a crisis. My mind was already building the architecture. Neural networks for pattern recognition. Machine learning models that could digest historical data and project future scenarios. Real-time monitoring systems that could flag anomalies before they cascaded into emergencies. "I can build that," I said slowly, the possibilities unfolding like origami in my thoughts. "Give me access to real hospital data sets and 6 months. I'll create something that makes every other analytics platform look primitive." Nathan crossed the room and pulled me up from my chair, kissing me with the intensity of someone who'd just seen the future. "This is it, Vic. This is the thing that changes everything for us. Your brain and my hustle. We're going to be unstoppable." Those first months were a study in controlled chaos and absolute faith. We worked until dawn most nights, then stumbled to our day jobs on 3 hours of sleep and determination. Nathan kept selling medical supplies while quietly building a network of contacts in hospital administration. I kept taking freelance coding contracts while pouring every spare hour into the Apex platform. We ate breakfast tacos for dinner more nights than not, splitting a $4 meal and calling it a feast. The incorporation papers went in my name because Nathan's credit was destroyed from undergraduate loans he'd taken at 19 when he'd believed the promises about degree value. We needed someone who could sign for business accounts, apply for lines of credit, interface with banks. That pragmatic decision, made over coffee and kolaches at a South Congress bakery, became the foundation of everything that followed. I owned 58% because I was the technical architect and the registered owner. Nathan owned 42% because he was the business development engine. It felt fair. It felt balanced. We were partners in every sense that mattered. Our wedding happened in the middle of that first brutal year. Nothing elaborate because we couldn't spare the time or money. A simple ceremony at a friend's ranch outside Dripping Springs, with wildflowers I'd picked that morning and a dress I'd found at a consignment shop on Burnett Road. 50 people who believed in us enough to drive out into the hill country heat and watch us make promises under a live oak tree. Nathan's vows made everyone cry. Victoria Hayes, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever known. You see solutions where other people see obstacles. You build futures with your mind and your hands. I promise to honor your brilliance, to protect your vision, and to never let my ego interfere with our partnership. Everything we build together. Everything we achieve as equals. I believed every word. Standing there in my second-hand dress, holding hands with this man who saw my potential and celebrated it, I believed we were constructing something unshakable. The first real breakthrough came 9 months after incorporation. I'd finally cracked the pattern recognition algorithm that had been eluding me for weeks. The code was elegant, efficient, revolutionary. It could analyze patient admission data and predict readmission probability with 87% accuracy 3 weeks in advance. No other platform could do that. Nobody was even close. Nathan took the demo to St. David's Medical Center, one of Austin's major hospital networks. I'd prepared a presentation showing exactly how our platform could reduce readmissions, optimize bed allocation, and save millions in Medicare penalties. Nathan walked into that meeting with my laptop and my slides and my breakthrough, and he sold them a pilot program for $60,000. We celebrated at a barbecue place on East 6th, the kind where you ordered at a window and ate at picnic tables under string lights. Nathan kept picking me up and spinning me around, laughing like a kid. You did it, Vic. You brilliant, incredible woman, you actually did it. We did it, I corrected, but I was laughing too, dizzy with relief and possibility. The pilot program succeeded beyond anyone's projections. St. David saw a 23% reduction in preventable readmissions within the first quarter. Their CFO called Nathan directly to negotiate an expansion. Then other hospitals started calling. Methodist, Seton, Dell Children's. Word spread through the healthcare administrator network like lightning through dry grass. Within 18 months, we'd moved from the garage apartment to actual office space in a converted warehouse near the airport. Nothing fancy, just raw concrete floors and exposed ductwork, but it was ours. We hired our first employee, a developer named Kira Morrison who understood my code architecture almost intuitively. Then a salesperson to help Nathan handle the incoming requests. Then an operations coordinator to manage the growing complexity. Revenue hit $500,000 in year 2. $1.5 million in year 3. By year 5, we were at $4 million annually and attracting attention from venture capital firms. Marcus Liu from Horizon Ventures took us to dinner at Uchi and made an offer that would value Apex Dynamics at $8 million in exchange for 30% equity and 2 board seats. Nathan and I argued about it for 3 straight days. He wanted to take the money, scale rapidly, go national. I wanted to maintain control, grow organically, keep the company's soul intact. We compromised. We took a smaller investment, 15% for $3 million, kept majority control, and gave Marcus 1 board seat with advisory capacity only. That negotiation took place in our new house in West Lake Hills, a modest 3-bedroom with a view of the water we'd purchased 6 months earlier. Our first real home. I remember sitting on the back deck at sunset, watching the light turn the lake copper and gold, feeling like we'd finally made it. Everything we'd sacrificed and struggled for was paying off. I couldn't have done this without you, Nathan said, his arm around my shoulders. Your mind is the heart of everything we've built. We're a team, I replied. Your business instinct and my technical execution. Neither works without the other. He kissed my temple. Partners forever. In business and in life. The company continued growing. By year 8, we'd expanded to Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. Our client list included 23 hospital systems across Texas. Revenue hit $12 million annually. We hired a proper sales team, a marketing department, a customer success division. The raw warehouse office was replaced by a sleek space in downtown Austin with views of Lady Bird Lake and the Capitol building. I moved from hands-on coding to architectural oversight, managing a development team of 12 brilliant engineers. Kira became my second-in-command, the person who understood the platform's DNA as well as I did. We'd work late together sometimes, debugging complex problems or designing new features, and I'd feel grateful for finding someone who could think alongside me. Nathan transitioned fully into the CEO role he'd always been destined for. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. He was magnetic in that position. Clients loved him. Investors trusted him. Employees rallied around his vision. He had a gift for making people believe they were part of something meaningful, something that mattered beyond profit margins. Our 10th anniversary fell on a Tuesday. Nathan had it catered into the office, a surprise celebration with champagne and a cake decorated with our wedding photo. He gave a toast in front of the entire company. 10 years ago, I married the smartest person I've ever met. 10 years ago, we started building Apex Dynamics with nothing but ambition and talent. Today, we're changing healthcare across Texas. Tomorrow, we'll change it across America. And none of it would exist without Victoria's extraordinary mind. Everyone applauded. I felt seen, valued, essential. The architect whose foundation supported everything above. What I didn't see, what I couldn't see through the gratitude and partnership and shared success, was that Nathan had started to believe his own mythology. Somewhere in the transformation from scrappy entrepreneur to successful CEO, he'd begun to think the vision was his alone, that execution was just technical implementation any skilled developer could provide. The shift was so gradual I didn't notice it happening. Small things first, barely perceptible. In meetings with potential clients, Nathan started positioning himself as the singular founder. When I started Apex Dynamics, he'd say, and I'd feel a small twist in my chest but say nothing because correcting him in front of clients felt petty. My vision for healthcare transformation, he'd explain, and the algorithms I'd created became backdrop to his narrative. He started traveling more. Houston for client meetings. Dallas for investor presentations. San Francisco to meet with potential acquisition targets. 2 or 3 nights a week away from home became normal. When I asked to join the San Francisco trip, he'd frowned. It's just preliminary conversations, Vic, boring business development stuff. Stay here and focus on the platform upgrade. That's way more valuable. So I stayed. I focused on the technical work while Nathan built relationships and closed deals and positioned himself as the face of our company. I told myself this was natural division of labor. He was better at the external performance. I was better at the internal creation. This was partnership working exactly as it should. The board expanded as we took on additional investment. Marcus brought in 2 of his Horizon Ventures colleagues. Nathan added a friend from his previous sales job, someone who'd supposedly advised him during our early days, though I barely remembered the person. By year 11, the board had 7 members. Nathan held 3 votes through his ownership and proxy arrangements. I held 3 through mine. Marcus held the deciding vote. It's balanced, Nathan assured me when I questioned the structure. Neither of us can make major decisions without the other's support. That's how partnership should work. I agreed because it seemed logical. What I didn't understand then was that boards don't operate on ownership percentages alone. They operate on relationships, influence, loyalty. Nathan was cultivating his relationships while I was cultivating code. The quarterly board meetings became increasingly strange. Nathan would present operational updates that glossed over technical achievements. "We've upgraded our platform capabilities," became the summary of 6 months of intensive development work. "We've expanded our analytical features," covered the breakthrough in real-time predictive modeling that Kira and I had pioneered. When I tried to add technical context, Nathan would smile indulgently. Victoria likes to dive deep into the engineering details, but the key takeaway for board purposes is that we're staying competitive and innovative. Marcus and the other board members would nod appreciatively at Nathan's ability to keep things high-level and strategic. Meanwhile, my actual contributions were being summarized into footnotes. The hiring of Sienna Park happened during one of Nathan's decision-making sprints where he'd present completed actions rather than proposed plans. "I've brought on a new marketing coordinator," he announced at a Monday leadership meeting. Sienna Park, fresh MBA from UT Austin, brilliant social media instincts, exactly what we need to improve our brand presence. She started the following week. 27 years old, effortlessly stylish, with the kind of confidence that comes from never being underestimated. She wore designer dresses to the office and heels that clicked purposefully on our concrete floors. Her Instagram feed showed a life of rooftop brunches and weekend trips to Tulum and carefully curated aesthetic perfection. I was 41, dressed in practical blazers and flats, more concerned with comfortable keyboards than curated image. The contrast was immediate and uncomfortable. "You'll love Sienna," Nathan told me after her first week. "She gets the vision. She understands where we need to go with brand positioning." What struck me was his enthusiasm. He'd never been particularly interested in marketing before. Suddenly he was in Sienna's office constantly, reviewing social media strategies, discussing brand narratives, planning content calendars. He started using phrases like authentic engagement and story-driven marketing that sounded foreign coming from his mouth. The late evening started shortly after. "Sienna and I need to finish the rebrand proposal for the board," Nathan would text around 6. "Don't wait up." I'd drive home alone to our West Lake house, heat up leftovers, and fall asleep watching television I wasn't really seeing. When he'd crawl into bed at midnight or 1, I'd smell unfamiliar perfume. Something expensive and floral, nothing I'd ever worn. "You're working a lot with Sienna," I mentioned one morning over coffee. "She's bringing energy we've needed," Nathan replied, not looking up from his phone. Fresh perspective, contemporary thinking. Sometimes you need new voices to push forward. New voices. As if my voice, the one that had built the entire technical foundation, had somehow become old and obsolete. I started paying closer attention. Watching Nathan and Sienna in meetings. The way she'd touch his arm while laughing at his comments. The way he'd lean toward her when she spoke, giving her the kind of focused attention I couldn't remember receiving recently. The way they'd exchange glances across the conference table like they were sharing private jokes the rest of us weren't included in. "You're being paranoid," I told myself. Nathan loved me. We'd built this company together. We'd made vows under a live oak tree. He wouldn't betray everything we'd created. But the evidence kept accumulating in ways I couldn't ignore. The weekend trips to Houston that now included Sienna because she needs client exposure. The investor dinners where Sienna accompanied Nathan while I stayed back to handle technical issues that rarely actually existed. The way our leadership meetings shifted focus from product and operations to brand and positioning, Sienna's domain. 3 months after Sienna's arrival, Nathan proposed restructuring the executive team. "We need to formalize roles as we scale," he explained to the leadership group. "I'll remain CEO. Victoria continues as CTO, obviously. But we need a COO to handle day-to-day operations, someone who can integrate all our departments under unified strategy." "That's been my role," I said carefully. "I've been managing operations alongside technical development." "And you've done great work," Nathan said with that patronizing tone I'd started to recognize. "But now we need someone fully dedicated to operations. Someone without competing technical responsibilities. Someone like Sienna," I said flatly. She's demonstrated exceptional organizational thinking, Nathan replied. She's young, yes, but she's got instincts for operational efficiency that could really benefit us. Young. That was the word that landed like a stone in my stomach. She's young, therefore valuable. Implicitly, I was old, therefore less valuable. The board meeting where Nathan proposed Sienna's promotion was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend before reviewing our corporate documents, something I hadn't looked at carefully in years. The operations had been running smoothly. I'd trusted Nathan to handle the administrative details while I focused on the technical vision. That trust was about to be tested in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The corporate documents told a story I'd somehow forgotten. Page after page of incorporation papers, investment agreements, shareholder resolutions, all filed carefully in the digital archive I rarely accessed anymore. I sat at my home office desk that Sunday evening, the lake view outside my window fading into dusk, and traced the history of our ownership structure with growing clarity. 58%. I'd started with 65% because I was the registered founder and technical architect. When we took the first Horizon Ventures investment, we'd both diluted proportionally. My share dropped to 58%. Nathan's dropped to 37%. Horizon held 15% split among Marcus Liu and his partners. Somehow, over the years of operational success and partnership trust, I'd stopped thinking about those numbers. They existed as abstract facts rather than practical power. Nathan and I made decisions together. We presented united fronts to the board. The specific percentages felt irrelevant when we operated as equal partners. But as I reviewed the shareholder agreements, I realized the percentages were everything. Any major corporate action required 50% approval. Board composition, executive appointments, compensation structures, equity grants, operational restructuring. With 58%, I didn't need Nathan's agreement. I didn't need the board's approval. I held majority control over Apex Dynamics, and that control had been there all along, quiet and patient, waiting for the moment I might need to remember it existed. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 the following morning. Nathan's proposal to make Sienna the chief operating officer sat in my inbox, formatted professionally with an org chart showing her authority over all departments except technology. Marketing, sales, customer success, finance, human resources. Everything that made the company function beyond the platform itself. My role would remain Chief Technology Officer, a title that sounded important but effectively isolated me to pure technical oversight. No operational authority. No strategic input outside my specific domain. The architect relegated to the basement while someone else designed the house above. I opened a new document and began writing. Not a response to Nathan's proposal, but something more fundamental. A counter-proposal that would reshape everything. Monday morning arrived with typical Austin summer intensity. The sky was already bright and hot at 7 when I dressed for the office. I chose carefully. A tailored navy suit I'd purchased for a keynote speech at a healthcare analytics conference. Heels that added 3 inches to my height. Hair pulled back professionally. Makeup applied with more attention than usual. I was dressing for battle, though Nathan wouldn't recognize it as such. He was already gone when I came downstairs. His coffee mug sat in the sink, his breakfast plate beside it. The casual domestic evidence of a man comfortable in his routines, confident in his plans. I made my own coffee and reviewed my documents one final time. Everything was prepared. Everything was ready. The drive downtown took 20 minutes through Monday traffic. I parked in my reserved spot in the garage beneath our building and rode the elevator to the 8th floor where Apex Dynamics occupied the entire level. The receptionist greeted me cheerfully. Employees nodded as I passed their desks. Everything appeared normal, ordinary, just another Monday morning board meeting. Kira caught me before I reached my office. "Victoria, do you have a minute?" I followed her into a conference room, noting the concern on her face. Kira was 34, brilliant with machine learning architectures, and had been with Apex for 7 years. She understood the platform's technical foundations as deeply as anyone besides myself. "I heard about the proposed restructuring," she said quietly. Sienna as COO. Is that actually happening? That's what Nathan wants. It's insane. She's been here 8 months. She doesn't understand healthcare analytics or operational complexity or client relationships at any meaningful level. She's a marketing coordinator with an MBA and good social media instincts. Kira paused, clearly wrestling with how much to say. Victoria, I don't think this is about operational efficiency. What do you think it's about? I think Nathan's having a midlife crisis and Sienna makes him feel young again. I think he's confusing infatuation with innovation. And I think he's about to make a catastrophic mistake if someone doesn't stop him. I studied Kira's face, seeing the loyalty and frustration there. How many other people feel this way? Most of the technical team. Tyler in finance has expressed concerns. Several of the senior account managers think promoting Sienna over everyone with actual tenure is demoralizing. But nobody wants to say anything directly because Nathan's the CEO and challenging him feels like career suicide. What if it wasn't challenging him? What if it was just supporting me? Kira's expression shifted to something more alert. What are you planning? Come to the board meeting. Sit in the back. You'll see. The conference room was set up for the board meeting when I arrived at 8:45. Nathan sat at the head of the table, reviewing notes on his tablet. Marcus Liu and his 2 Horizon Ventures colleagues occupied one side. Nathan's friend from the sales world, a man named Greg Townsend, sat beside him. 2 empty chairs remained for the final board members. Sienna stood near the window, looking polished in a cream dress that probably cost more than my entire suit. She held a presentation remote, clearly prepared to present alongside Nathan. Morning, Vic, Nathan said without much warmth. Ready for the meeting? Absolutely. I have some materials to share as well. His eyebrows rose slightly. I thought we were focused on the operational restructuring today. We are. I just have some relevant context. Nathan glanced at Marcus, who shrugged. More information is always useful. The remaining board members arrived. Diana Foster, our corporate attorney who held an advisory board seat, and Thomas Brennan, a healthcare administrator who joined as an independent board member 2 years prior. With everyone seated, Nathan called the meeting to order. Thank you all for being here. Today we're discussing organizational restructuring to support our continued growth. As you know, we've reached $15 million in annual revenue, expanded to 4 Texas markets, and are preparing for multi-state expansion. That growth requires operational excellence we haven't fully formalized. He clicked his presentation remote. An organizational chart appeared on the screen, showing Nathan at the top, Sienna in a new COO position beneath him, and all operational departments reporting to her. My name appeared in a separate box labeled CTO with the development team as my only direct reports. Sienna has demonstrated exceptional strategic thinking and operational instinct during her time here, Nathan continued. Her background in organizational design and her fresh perspective on our processes make her ideal for this role. She'll coordinate all departments outside of technology, ensuring unified execution of our strategic vision. Sienna stepped forward, her presentation clearly rehearsed. Thank you, Nathan. I've spent the past months analyzing our operational workflows and identifying efficiency opportunities. What I've found is significant fragmentation. Marketing operates independently of sales. Customer success doesn't coordinate effectively with product development. Finance lacks real-time visibility into departmental spending. As COO, I'll integrate these functions under cohesive leadership, driving accountability and performance across the organization. She spoke confidently, using all the right business terminology. Integration, synergy, accountability, performance metrics. It sounded impressive if you didn't think too carefully about what she was actually proposing or whether someone with 8 months of experience could execute it. Marcus leaned back in his chair. It's an ambitious proposal. Victoria, what's your perspective on this restructuring? Nathan interjected before I could respond. Victoria and I have discussed this extensively. She's supportive of focusing on technology while operational management gets dedicated attention. Actually, I said clearly, Nathan and I haven't discussed this at all. He informed me of his plans, but we haven't had any meaningful conversation about whether this restructuring serves the company's interests. The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Nathan's expression tightened. I think that's a mischaracterization, Vic, is it? When did we discuss this together? What conversation did we have where I expressed support? Silence. Nathan's jaw worked as he searched for a response that wouldn't sound defensive. Regardless, he said finally, the proposal stands on its own merits. Sienna's qualifications speak for themselves. Do they? I opened my laptop and connected to the screen, replacing Nathan's org chart with my own presentation. Let me provide some context the board might find relevant. My first slide showed Apex Dynamics' technical achievements over 15 years. The initial algorithm that launched the company. The predictive modeling breakthrough that secured St. David's as our first major client. The real-time monitoring system that differentiated us from competitors. The machine learning enhancements that tripled our accuracy rates. Each achievement was marked with a date and the technical lead responsible. Every single one was credited to me or my development team. Our company exists because of technical innovation, I said calmly. Every client we've secured, every contract we've renewed, every expansion market we've entered has happened because our platform delivers results no competitor can match. That platform is my creation. The algorithms are my architecture. The breakthrough that made us viable was my solution to a problem everyone else considered unsolvable. I advanced to the next slide, showing revenue growth mapped against technical milestones. Every significant revenue increase correlated directly with a platform enhancement. Nathan is an exceptional businessman. His ability to build relationships, close deals, and position our company in the market has been invaluable. But the product he sells exists because of technical excellence, not operational efficiency. Promoting a marketing coordinator with 8 months of tenure to oversee all operations doesn't strengthen that technical foundation. It dilutes focus and elevates brand management over substance. Sienna's confident posture had shifted to something more rigid. Nathan's face showed barely contained frustration. Furthermore, I continued, this restructuring effectively removes me from operational input. My role becomes pure technical oversight with no voice in strategic direction, resource allocation, or company priorities. That might work at a company where technology is a support function. At Apex Dynamics, technology is the entire foundation. Removing the technical architect from strategic decisions is architectural suicide. Marcus was nodding slowly. Thomas Brennan, the healthcare administrator, looked thoughtful. Diana Foster, the attorney, watched Nathan with an expression I couldn't quite read. What are you proposing instead? Marcus asked. I advanced to my final slide. A different organizational structure. My name at the top as Chief Executive Officer. Nathan repositioned as Chief Business Officer, overseeing sales, marketing, and client relationships. Kira promoted to Chief Technology Officer, managing day-to-day technical operations. Tyler Brennan from Finance elevated to Chief Financial Officer. No COO position at all. The room went absolutely silent. Nathan stared at the screen like it had personally betrayed him. This is ridiculous, he said, his voice tight. Victoria, you can't just unilaterally propose replacing me as CEO. I'm not replacing you. I'm restructuring leadership to reflect actual value creation and operational reality. You remain in the organization with the role you excel at. Business development, client relationships, market positioning. Those are your strengths. But strategic direction and resource allocation should be led by the person who actually built what we're selling. The board would never approve this, Nathan said, looking at Marcus desperately. Actually, I said quietly, the board doesn't need to approve it. I own 58% of Apex Dynamics. Any operational restructuring requires only majority shareholder approval, which means it requires only my approval. I can implement this change unilaterally. The words landed like physical blows. Nathan's face went pale, then flushed dark red. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. I founded this company. I built the platform that generates every dollar of revenue. I own majority control. And I'm exercising that control to prevent you from dismantling 15 years of work for the sake of elevating your 27-year-old girlfriend. Sienna made a small sound of protest. Nathan's mouth opened and closed without producing words. Marcus Liu leaned forward, his expression neutral but his eyes sharp. Victoria, this is a significant action. Have you thought through the implications? I've thought through nothing else for the past 72 hours. Nathan has forgotten what actually makes this company valuable. He's confusing his role in selling the product with creating the product itself. That confusion is about to cost us everything if I don't intervene. This is a hostile takeover, Nathan finally managed. You're staging a coup against your own husband. I'm protecting the company we built from your ego and your midlife crisis. There's a difference. Diana Foster spoke for the first time. As corporate counsel, I need to point out that Victoria is legally correct. Her majority ownership gives her authority to implement operational changes without board approval. The board can advise, but we can't block her if she chooses to proceed. Nathan looked around the table, searching for allies. Greg Townsend, his sales friend, looked uncomfortable but said nothing. The Horizon Ventures representatives were clearly calculating the financial implications. Thomas Brennan seemed almost amused. I need to speak with Victoria privately, Nathan said abruptly. We can take a 15-minute recess, Marcus agreed. Nathan stood and walked out of the conference room. I followed him down the hall to his office, feeling the eyes of every employee we passed. Word would spread through the company within minutes. Inside his office, Nathan closed the door and turned on me with fury I'd never seen before. What the hell are you doing? Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your professional life. By humiliating me in front of the board? By stripping away my role? By reminding you that this company exists because of my mind, not your charm. You were about to hand operational control to someone you're sleeping with. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I'd just accept being pushed aside? His face went absolutely white. I'm not sleeping with Sienna. Please don't insult me with lies. The late nights, the weekend trips, the way you look at her. I've watched you fall in love with someone else right in front of me. What I won't do is watch you destroy our company in the process. Nathan sank into his desk chair, the fight draining out of him. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was different. Smaller. I felt invisible. You're so brilliant, Vic. You always have been. You walk into a room and solve problems nobody else can touch. You built something extraordinary, and I'm just the guy who sells it. Sienna made me feel like I mattered. Like my vision and my ideas were valuable, not just my ability to execute your concepts. So you decided to replace me with her. I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted something that was mine. Something I created instead of just facilitating. This company is yours. We built it together. But somewhere along the way, you started believing you did it alone, that I was just technical support for your vision. That's not what happened, Nathan. I am the vision. The algorithms, the platform, the breakthrough that made everything possible. That was me. He looked up, and for the first time in months, I saw him actually seeing me. Not his wife, not his CTO, but the person who'd sat in a garage apartment 15 years ago and turned his idea into reality. I've been an idiot, he said quietly. Yes. You have. What happens now? I sat down across from him. Now you decide whether your ego matters more than this company. If you fight me, I'll implement the restructuring and remove you entirely. If you accept reality, we can find a way forward that preserves what we built. As your subordinate. As my business development officer. It's what you're actually good at, Nathan. Stop trying to be something you're not. He closed his eyes, processing. And Sienna? Stays in her current role or leaves. She doesn't get promoted over people with years of tenure because she made you feel young. The board will think I'm weak. The board will think you're smart enough to recognize when you've made a mistake. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside his office windows, Austin stretched out in the morning heat, oblivious to the small revolution happening on the 8th floor. If I agree to this, Nathan said finally, what happens to us? To our marriage? I don't know. That's a different conversation for a different time. Right now, we're talking about saving the company. He nodded slowly. I need time to think. You have until we return to the board meeting. 15 minutes. I left him there and walked back toward the conference room. Kira intercepted me in the hallway, her expression urgent. What happened? The entire office is buzzing. I just reorganized the company. It remains to be seen whether Nathan will accept it. And if he doesn't? Then he'll learn exactly how much power I actually hold. The remaining board members were in quiet conversation when I returned. They fell silent as I entered. Is Nathan joining us? Marcus asked. He's considering his options. Diana Foster's mouth twitched in what might have been a suppressed smile. This is certainly the most interesting board meeting I've attended. Nathan returned exactly 14 minutes later. He looked diminished somehow, the confident CEO energy replaced with something more human and uncertain. He sat down in his chair and looked at me across the table. I'd like to propose a compromise, he said. His voice was steady but lacked its usual commanding tone. Victoria's restructuring has merit. She's right that technical leadership should drive strategic direction at a company built on technical innovation. I'll accept the chief business officer role with one condition. Which is? I asked. We implement the change as a mutual decision. Not as Victoria exercising majority control, but as the founding team recognizing the optimal leadership structure. It preserves both our dignities and presents a united front to the company. I considered this. It was a reasonable request, and frankly, better optics than appearing to stage a hostile takeover against my own husband. Agreed. With the understanding that my authority as CEO and majority shareholder is documented and clear. Understood. Marcus looked between us. So we're proposing that Victoria becomes CEO, Nathan transitions to Chief Business Officer, and the additional promotions Victoria outlined are implemented? That's correct, I said. All in favor? Every hand rose. Even Greg Townsend, Nathan's friend, voted for the change. The message was clear. The board recognized where actual value originated. Motion passes, Marcus said. Congratulations, Victoria. When do you want to announce this to the company? Today. This afternoon. No reason to delay. Nathan stood. I'll draft the announcement. Victoria should review and approve it before we send. The meeting adjourned. Board members filed out with various expressions ranging from satisfaction to concern. Sienna had disappeared at some point during the private conversation, probably recognizing her promotion had evaporated. I found Kira waiting outside the conference room. Well? I'm CEO. Nathan is Chief Business Officer. You're CTO. Want the job? Her face transformed with shock and joy. Are you serious? Completely. You've earned it 10 times over. The platform is as much yours now as mine. She hugged me, something she'd never done before. Thank you. God, thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't. The company-wide announcement went out at 2 that afternoon. Nathan had written it carefully, framing the restructuring as a natural evolution of our leadership team. Victoria Hayes, our founding technical architect, is assuming the CEO role to guide Apex Dynamics' strategic direction. I'm transitioning to Chief Business Officer, focusing on the client relationships and market development where I'm most effective. This change reflects our commitment to putting the right people in the right roles as we scale. The responses came quickly. Most employees seemed relieved rather than surprised. Several sent me direct messages expressing support. About time someone recognized your actual role, one senior developer wrote. This company is your creation. Everyone knows it. Tyler Brennan from finance stopped by my office late that afternoon. Congratulations on the promotion. Long overdue. Thank you. I'm making you CFO, by the way. Assuming you want it. His eyes widened. I want it. Absolutely. Good. We need financial leadership that understands where value actually comes from. After Tyler left, I sat alone in my office watching the sun lower toward the western hills. The day had been a controlled detonation of everything I'd assumed about my role, my marriage, and my power. I'd walked into a board meeting expecting to defend my position. I'd walked out having claimed complete control. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. Can we talk tonight? At home? I replied simply. Yes. The drive home felt different. The same route through downtown Austin, across the lake, up into the hills. But I was different. Not Nathan's technical support or junior partner. The CEO of a company I'd built with my own mind and hands. Nathan's car was already in the driveway when I arrived. I found him on the back deck, 2 glasses of wine poured, watching the lake reflect the sunset colors. Thank you for agreeing to talk, he said as I sat down. We need to figure out what happens next. He handed me a glass. I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. I'm sorry. For all of it. For taking you for granted. For believing I was more essential than I actually am. For Sienna. Are you in love with her? He was quiet for a long moment. I thought I was. She made me feel significant in ways I wasn't feeling at home. But today, when you took control of that board meeting, when you reminded everyone who actually built Apex Dynamics, I realized I'd confused infatuation with importance. Sienna made me feel important. You made me actually important by building something I could sell. That's not an answer to my question. No. I'm not in love with her. I'm in love with how she made me feel. There's a difference. I sipped the wine, tasting oak and berries and 15 years of choices. Did you sleep with her? No. I thought about it. We came close a few times. But no. I wasn't sure if I believed him, but the answer mattered less than I expected. The betrayal wasn't physical. It was the systematic erasure of my contributions, the elevation of someone unqualified because she stroked his ego, the attempt to restructure me into irrelevance. I don't know if we survive this, I said quietly. The company will. I'll make sure of that. But us, our marriage, I don't know. I understand. Whatever you decide, I'll accept it. You've earned that right. We sat in silence as the sunset faded and the first stars emerged. Somewhere in Austin, Sienna was probably processing her sudden fall from promotion track to uncomfortable position. Somewhere, Kira was celebrating her elevation to CTO. Somewhere, the machinery of Apex Dynamics continued running on algorithms I'd created and code I'd written. Nathan reached for my hand. I let him take it, though I felt nothing but exhaustion. For what it's worth, he said, watching you take control today was the most attracted to you I've been in years. You were magnificent. I was necessary. There's a difference. He squeezed my hand gently. Will you at least consider trying to fix this? Not now, but eventually. I looked at him in the fading light. The man I'd married under a live oak tree. The partner I'd built an empire with. The husband who'd forgotten I was the empire's foundation. I'll consider it, I said. But Nathan, if we do try, everything changes. No more taking credit for my work. No more positioning yourself as the singular founder. No more treating me like technical support for your vision. You're the business officer now. Act like it. I will. I promise. Promises. We'd made so many over 15 years. Some kept, some broken, some forgotten entirely. Whether this new promise would hold remained to be seen. What I knew for certain was that I'd never again forget the power I held. 58%. Majority control. The final word on everything that mattered. Nathan had tried to make me invisible. Instead, he'd forced me to become unavoidable. The irony was almost beautiful. The announcement of my CEO appointment created ripples that spread beyond Apex Dynamics faster than I anticipated. By Wednesday morning, 2 days after the board meeting, my phone was flooding with messages from competitors, investors, and industry publications. TechCrunch wanted an interview about the leadership transition. 3 venture capital firms reached out about potential expansion funding. 2 competing healthcare analytics companies sent exploratory acquisition offers. The attention was validating and exhausting in equal measure. I'd spent 15 years building the technical foundation while Nathan basked in the spotlight of public recognition. Now that spotlight had swung to me, and its intensity was uncomfortable. I'd never wanted to be the face of the company. I'd wanted to be the mind behind it. But apparently, those roles were no longer separable. Sienna submitted her resignation on Thursday. The email was brief and professional, thanking us for the opportunity and citing a desire to pursue other career paths. No mention of the failed COO promotion or the awkward reality that everyone now understood her rapid advancement had been based on factors unrelated to competence. Nathan forwarded me her resignation without comment. I approved her departure with 2 weeks severance and a neutral reference letter. There was no satisfaction in her leaving. She'd been a symptom of Nathan's crisis, not its cause. Kira moved into the CTO office on Friday, the space I'd occupied for the past 8 years. Watching her arrange her belongings on the desk felt like passing a torch I'd carried too long. She deserved this role. She'd earned it through countless late nights debugging complex algorithms and innovative thinking that pushed our platform forward. How does it feel? I asked, leaning against her doorframe. She looked up from organizing her monitors. Terrifying and exhilarating. Mostly terrifying. That means you're taking it seriously. The moment you stop being terrified is the moment you've become overconfident. Did you ever stop being terrified? I considered the question. No. I just learned to function while terrified. That's different from not feeling it. My own office was being relocated to the corner suite that had been Nathan's domain. The move felt symbolic and strange. That space had represented his authority for years. Now it would represent mine. The maintenance team spent the weekend rearranging furniture and updating the nameplate on the door. Nathan took the office that had been mine without complaint. The physical demotion was obvious to everyone. His new space was smaller, with less impressive views and none of the executive grandeur his previous office had projected. If the humiliation bothered him, he kept it hidden behind professional composure. Our first executive leadership meeting under the new structure happened Monday morning. Kira as CTO, Tyler as CFO, Nathan as Chief Business Officer, and myself as CEO. The 4 of us sat around the conference table with the Austin skyline stretching behind us, and the awkwardness was almost tangible. Let's establish how we're going to function going forward, I started. This team succeeds when everyone operates in their area of strength. Kira, you own all technical decisions and platform development. Tyler, you control financial planning and resource allocation. Nathan, you manage client relationships, sales strategy, and market positioning. I'll handle overall strategic direction and final decision authority. Questions? Tyler spoke first. What's the approval process for major expenditures? Anything over $50,000 comes to me for final sign-off. Under that amount, you have discretion with quarterly review. And technical architecture decisions? Kira asked. You have full autonomy. I trust your judgment completely. If you want my input on something complex, I'm available for consultation, but you're not required to seek approval. Nathan had been quiet, studying his coffee cup. What about client contracts? Do I still have authority to negotiate terms? You have authority to negotiate. I have authority to approve final terms before signing. That's standard CEO oversight, Nathan. It's not personal. His jaw tightened slightly, but he nodded. Understood. The meeting continued for another hour, establishing workflows and communication protocols. By the end, we had a functional framework that acknowledged the power shift while maintaining operational efficiency. Whether it would actually work in practice remained to be seen. The real test came 2 weeks later when Nathan brought a potential client contract that would have required significant platform customization. The client was a major hospital network in Phoenix, revenue potential of $2 million annually, but they wanted features our platform didn't currently support. Nathan presented the opportunity enthusiastically. This opens Arizona as a market. The customization they're requesting is reasonable, and the revenue more than justifies the development investment. I reviewed the technical specifications they'd outlined. These aren't minor customizations. They're requesting fundamental changes to our data processing architecture. Kira, how long would this take to implement? She'd been studying the requirements while Nathan presented. 4 to 6 months of dedicated development time. We'd need to pull resources from other projects. And honestly, these changes would create technical debt that could complicate future development. But the revenue justifies it, Nathan insisted. $2 million annually is substantial. $2 million against 6 months of development costs and long-term technical complications, I countered. The math doesn't work, Nathan. We'd be building custom solutions for one client instead of scalable features that benefit everyone. So we just turn down major opportunities because they require effort? We turn down opportunities that compromise our technical foundation for short-term revenue. That's strategic thinking, not avoidance. The tension in the room was sharp enough to cut. Nathan was clearly struggling with having his business judgment overruled. Tyler and Kira watched the exchange carefully, probably wondering if this partnership could actually survive. What if we counterpropose? I suggested. Tell them we can deliver 80% of what they want using our existing architecture, at half the implementation timeline. Frame it as us helping them achieve their goals more efficiently rather than refusing their requirements. Nathan considered this. That might work. They're primarily concerned with predictive readmission modeling. The other features were nice-to-have additions. Then structure the proposal around what we do best and table the customizations for future consideration. That way we get the revenue without compromising our platform. He nodded slowly, the frustration easing from his expression. I can sell that approach. I know you can. You're exceptional at framing possibilities. Just work with Kira on technical feasibility before promising deliverables. After Nathan and Tyler left, Kira lingered. That was well handled. You gave him a path forward instead of just shutting him down. He's still valuable to this company. I need him to remember that while also accepting his role has boundaries. Do you think he'll adjust? I think he doesn't have much choice. The alternative is admitting he can't function without being in charge, which means leaving entirely. His ego is bruised, but it's not shattered. He'll adapt. The Phoenix deal closed 3 weeks later using our modified proposal. Nathan was right that he could sell the approach. The client signed a contract worth $1.8 million annually with implementation beginning immediately using existing platform capabilities. Revenue without technical debt. Victory without compromise. I sent Nathan an email acknowledging his successful negotiation. His reply was brief but genuine. Thanks. Good call on the modifications. I was thinking short-term. You were thinking long-term. Small victories. Small acknowledgements that the new structure could actually function. At home, the adjustment was more complicated. Nathan and I were living in the same house, sleeping in the same bed, maintaining the appearance of marriage while the foundation crumbled beneath us. We were polite to each other. Professional, even. But the intimacy that had defined 15 years together had evaporated like morning dew under harsh sun. He tried initiating physical connection several times. A hand on my shoulder while I worked. An attempt to kiss me before bed. Gestures that would have been natural months ago now felt performative and desperate. I'm not ready, I told him after the third attempt. You can't betray me and expect physical intimacy to continue unchanged. I'm trying to rebuild what I damaged. I know. But rebuilding takes time. You don't get to rush my healing because you're ready to move past your mistakes. He withdrew to the guest bedroom after that conversation. The separation was practical, but it also made the state of our marriage undeniable. We were housemates managing a business relationship, not partners building a life together. I started seeing Dr. Helen Cartwright, a therapist in North Austin who specialized in professional relationships and betrayal. The first session was mostly me explaining the situation while she took notes and asked clarifying questions. You've experienced multiple betrayals, she observed during our second meeting. Professional erasure, emotional infidelity, and an attempt to systematically diminish your authority and contributions. That's layered trauma, Victoria. It's not something you just get over because the immediate crisis is resolved. I don't know how to separate the personal from the professional. We built this company together. Our marriage and our business are intertwined in ways I can't untangle. Maybe you don't untangle them. Maybe you acknowledge that they're permanently connected and decide whether that connection is sustainable or toxic. The question haunted me for weeks. Was Nathan and I's relationship salvageable, or were we just delaying an inevitable ending? Could I ever trust him again, or would I spend the rest of our marriage waiting for the next betrayal? The answer started becoming clear during a late night at the office 6 weeks after the restructuring. I was reviewing quarterly projections when Nathan knocked on my door around 9 in the evening. Didn't expect anyone else to be here, he said, hovering in the doorway. Could say the same. What are you working on? Preparing for the Dallas expansion pitch tomorrow. Want to make sure I have all the technical specifications accurate before I present to their board. He handed me his presentation. I reviewed it carefully, noting that he'd included detailed platform capabilities without overpromising or misrepresenting our technology. Every technical claim was accurate. Every feature description was honest. This is good work, I said, looking up at him. You've clearly consulted with Kira on the technical details. I learned my lesson about making promises I can't deliver. Seemed smarter to verify everything first. We sat in silence for a moment. His presence in my office doorway felt less uncomfortable than it had weeks ago. Not comfortable, exactly, but not actively painful. Can I ask you something? Nathan said quietly. Go ahead. Do you think there's any chance for us? Not the company, us. Our marriage. I set down his presentation and really looked at him. He'd lost weight since the restructuring. The confidence that used to define his presence had been replaced with something more cautious and uncertain. He looked older, more worn. I don't know, I answered honestly. I don't know if I can forget what you did. How you tried to erase me. How you fell for someone else while telling me I was paranoid. Those aren't small betrayals, Nathan. They're fundamental violations of trust. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking if there's any possibility you might want to try rebuilding. Why do you want to rebuild? Is it because you actually love me, or because being married to the CEO is convenient? The question hung between us, harsh but necessary. He needed to answer honestly, and I needed to hear truth rather than performance. Both, he said finally. I won't lie and pretend it's purely emotional. Being married to you is professionally beneficial. But Victoria, I've loved you since you were 29 years old and could write code faster than anyone I'd ever seen. I loved you when we couldn't afford real furniture. I loved you when we signed our first major client. I loved you through every stage of building this company. What happened with Sienna wasn't about not loving you. It was about forgetting how to see you clearly. That's not exactly reassuring. I know. But it's honest. I can promise to work on seeing you clearly. I can't promise I'll never be an idiot again. Nobody can promise that. I studied his face in the dim office lighting. 15 years of history sat between us. 15 years of partnership, creation, struggle, success. Could all of that be destroyed by one terrible period of judgment? Or was what he'd done simply the revelation of who he'd always been beneath the surface? "I'll think about it," I said finally. "But Nathan, if we try this, you need to accept that I'm not the supporting player anymore. Not professionally and not personally. The dynamic has permanently shifted. I'm not going back to being your technical assistant who defers to your authority. I don't want you to. The woman who took control of that board meeting is the woman I should have been seeing all along. I was just too caught up in my own narrative to recognize it." He left shortly after, taking his presentation with him. I sat alone in my office for another hour, thinking about trust and betrayal and whether damaged foundations could support the weight of continued partnership. The Dallas expansion pitch succeeded. Nathan closed a 3-year contract worth $4.2 million. He credited the success to Kira's technical specifications and Tyler's financial modeling in his trip report. No claiming singular credit. No positioning himself as the visionary genius. Just honest acknowledgement of team effort. Small shifts. Small improvements. Not redemption, exactly, but movement in a positive direction. Marcus Liu called me directly in early November, 3 months after the restructuring. "Victoria, I wanted to check in on how the leadership transition is working. I've been reviewing quarterly reports, and the numbers are strong. But numbers don't tell me about operational functionality. It's working better than I expected," I admitted. "Nathan's adjusting to his role. The team is functioning cohesively. We've closed several major contracts and maintained our existing client relationships." "And personally? How are you and Nathan managing the transition?" "That's more complicated. We're separated but living in the same house. I'm in therapy. We're both trying to figure out if our marriage survives this or if we're just delaying the inevitable." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "For what it's worth, I think you made the right call. Nathan is an exceptional salesman, but he was starting to believe his own marketing. You reminded him that the product matters more than the pitch. That's valuable for everyone. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled it differently. Less dramatically. More privately. You handled it the only way that would work." Nathan wasn't going to accept gentle correction. He needed to be confronted with reality directly and definitively. "You did that. The company is stronger for it." The validation helped, though it didn't resolve the underlying questions about my marriage or my future. I was CEO of a successful company I'd built from nothing. I had full authority over strategic direction and operational decisions. I'd reclaimed power I hadn't even fully realized I'd lost. But I was also sleeping alone in a house I shared with my estranged husband, wondering if professional victory was worth personal destruction. Success and loneliness tasted remarkably similar, both bitter and sweet depending on the moment. Thanksgiving approached with uncomfortable speed. Nathan's family traditionally hosted in Ohio, but neither of us suggested making the trip. My parents were in Oregon, and the idea of explaining our separation over turkey dinner felt exhausting. "What if we stayed here?" Nathan suggested one evening. "Just the two of us. No family drama, no explaining our situation. We could cook something simple and pretend things are normal for one day." "Things aren't normal." "I know. But we could pretend. Just for a few hours." I agreed because the alternative was spending the holiday alone, and that felt somehow worse than spending it with Nathan. We cooked together on Thanksgiving Day, working in our Westlake kitchen with awkward coordination. Turkey breast instead of a whole bird. Simple sides. A pie from the bakery rather than homemade. We ate on the back deck despite the November chill, watching the lake reflect the afternoon sun. The silence between us was less hostile than it had been months ago, more contemplative than combative. "Do you remember our first Thanksgiving?" Nathan asked. "In the garage apartment? We ate ramen and called it festive because we added vegetables. You were debugging code the entire day. I kept trying to get you to stop working and celebrate, and you kept insisting you were almost finished." I was almost finished. I solved the load balancing issue that had been blocking us for weeks. He smiled, genuine and warm. "You were never not working. Even when you pretended to relax, your mind was solving problems. That bothered you? No. It amazed me. Your brain never stops building. I think that's what I forgot somewhere along the way. You're not someone who needs guidance or management. You're someone who creates futures the rest of us get to inhabit. The acknowledgement settled between us, fragile and real. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. But it was recognition, and that mattered. We cleaned up together as the sun set, working side by side in the kitchen we'd chosen together when we bought this house 5 years ago. The domesticity felt both familiar and foreign, like wearing clothes that used to fit but now hung differently. Thank you for today, Nathan said as we finished. I know you didn't have to agree to this. You're welcome. He hesitated, clearly wanting to say more but uncertain if he should. Finally, he spoke. I'm going to Ohio for Christmas. Visit my family. Give you space in the house. I think we both need time apart to figure out what comes next. That's probably wise. But I want you to know something before I go. I'm willing to wait. However long it takes for you to decide if we're salvageable. I'll wait. Because losing you professionally was humbling. Losing you personally would be devastating. I didn't respond because I didn't have an answer. The truth was I didn't know what I wanted. Security and independence felt equally appealing. Reconciliation and divorce both seemed simultaneously right and wrong. Nathan kissed my forehead, a gentle gesture without expectation, then retreated to the guest bedroom. I stood alone in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of a shared holiday, wondering if building a company was easier than rebuilding a marriage. The question would have to wait for an answer I wasn't ready to provide. December arrived with unseasonable cold, the kind of weather Austin wasn't built for. The city struggled with temperatures in the 30s, and our office heating system worked overtime. Nathan left for Ohio on the 20th, giving me 10 days alone in the house before Christmas. The silence was initially peaceful, then gradually oppressive. Empty rooms echoed with 15 years of conversations that no longer happened. I threw myself into work with intensity that worried even Kira. We were developing a major platform enhancement that would incorporate real-time genomic data into our predictive models. The technical challenge was extraordinary, requiring machine learning architectures I'd never attempted before. It consumed my attention completely, which was exactly what I needed. Christmas Eve found me still at the office at 11 at night, debugging an algorithm that kept producing inconsistent results. My phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. Merry Christmas Eve. Hope you're not working too late. Miss you. I stared at the message for several minutes before responding. Merry Christmas. Working on the genomic integration. Making progress. His reply came immediately. Of course you are. That's my Vic. Always building the future. The possessive struck me oddly. My Vic, was I still his? Had I ever truly been his, or had I always been my own person who he'd simply partnered with? The distinction felt important, though I couldn't articulate exactly why. I left the office shortly after midnight, driving through empty Austin streets decorated with lights that seemed garish in their cheerfulness. The house was dark and cold when I arrived. I'd forgotten to adjust the thermostat before leaving that morning. The silence felt complete, not peaceful but suffocating. Christmas Day passed in solitude. I worked from home, made myself a sandwich I barely tasted, and tried to ignore the fact that this was the first Christmas I'd spent entirely alone since meeting Nathan. My parents called, their concern thinly veiled behind holiday cheerfulness. I assured them everything was fine, the company was thriving, I was just taking some personal time to focus on professional growth. The lies came easily because I'd been practicing them for months. Nathan returned from Ohio on the 27th, letting himself into the house with careful quietness. I was in the kitchen making coffee when he arrived, both of us startled by the unexpected encounter. You're up early, he said, setting down his bag. Couldn't sleep. How was Ohio? Cold. Uncomfortable. My mother asked approximately 800 questions about our marriage that I couldn't answer honestly. He poured himself coffee from the pot I just made. I told her we were working through some challenges but remained committed to the company. The company. Not each other. I wasn't sure I could promise the other part without lying. The honesty was stark and uncomfortable. We stood in our kitchen, drinking coffee in the early morning darkness, two people who'd built an empire together but couldn't figure out how to share a home. "I've been thinking," Nathan said carefully, "about what happens next. Not with us necessarily, but with the practical logistics. This limbo we're living in isn't sustainable." "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know. Maybe I should move out officially. Get an apartment downtown. Give us actual separation rather than this weird cohabitation where we avoid each other in our own house." The suggestion made sense logically but felt like admitting defeat. As long as Nathan lived here, reconciliation remained theoretically possible. Once he moved out, we'd be crossing a line that would be difficult to uncross. "Is that what you want?" I asked. "I want whatever helps you figure out what you need. If having me here makes that harder, I'll leave. If having me here makes it easier, I'll stay. This isn't about what I want anymore, Vic. It's about what serves your healing." The selflessness felt genuine, which made it harder to dismiss. The Nathan who tried to promote his girlfriend over qualified employees would never have framed a decision around my needs. This version, humbled and careful, was someone I didn't entirely recognize. "Stay for now," I heard myself say. "If we're going to make any decision about our marriage, we should make it from proximity, not distance. Moving out feels like giving up before we've actually tried." "Are we trying? Is that what this is?" "I don't know what this is. But I'm not ready to call it finished." He nodded slowly, relief visible in his posture. "Okay. Thank you." The new year arrived with ambitious goals for Apex Dynamics. We were projecting $22 million in revenue for the coming year, up nearly 50% from the previous. The platform enhancements Kira and I had been developing were generating significant interest from hospital networks nationwide. Our expansion into genomic predictive modeling positioned us at the forefront of personalized medicine analytics. Marcus Liu brought a surprising proposal during our January board meeting. I'd been approached by several larger firms interested in acquiring Apex Dynamics. The valuations they're suggesting are substantial. I think we should at least hear the offers. I looked at Nathan across the table. We'd never seriously discussed selling. The company was our creation, our shared legacy. Selling felt like abandonment. "What kind of valuations?" Tyler asked, his CFO instincts immediately engaged. "Preliminary conversations are suggesting somewhere between 60 and 80 million. The number hung in the air like smoke. 60 million would mean 35 million for me personally. Enough to never work again. Enough to start something entirely new. Enough to redefine my entire life. "I'm not interested," I said clearly. "Apex Dynamics isn't for sale." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "That's a significant amount of money, Victoria. At least worth considering. I didn't build this platform to hand it over to some corporate acquirer who'll strip it for parts or integrate it into their existing systems until it's unrecognizable. This company represents 15 years of innovation. It's not a commodity to be traded." "Nathan, what's your perspective?" Marcus asked. Nathan looked at me, something unreadable in his expression. "Victoria owns 58%. If she says we're not selling, we're not selling. Her decision is final." The board members exchanged glances. Thomas Brennan spoke up. "With respect, Victoria, this decision affects all shareholders. Your majority gives you authority, but should you be making this choice unilaterally?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I should. I built the core technology. I drove the innovation that makes this company valuable. I'm not selling my life's work because someone waves a large check. If other shareholders want to exit, I'm happy to facilitate buyouts of their positions. But Apex Dynamics remains independent." The meeting continued, but the tone had shifted. I'd asserted my authority in a way that left no room for negotiation. Marcus looked frustrated. Nathan looked oddly proud. The other board members looked resigned to reality. After the meeting, Nathan caught me before I could leave. That was the right call. You think so? Or you're just agreeing because disagreeing is pointless now? Both. But mostly I think selling would have been tragic. This company is your masterpiece. You don't sell masterpieces for cash. You keep them and build on them. The conversation stayed with me for days. Nathan's support felt genuine, but I couldn't help wondering if he'd have made the same argument if he still held CEO authority. Would he have pushed for the sale, attracted by the liquidity and the ego boost of an 8-figure exit? The uncertainty about his motivations plagued me constantly. Was he being genuine now, or just adapting his behavior to accommodate the new power structure? How could I trust someone who'd proven himself capable of such systematic deception? Dr. Cartwright listened to these concerns during our weekly sessions with patient attention. You're looking for certainty in a situation that can't provide it. Nathan can't prove his sincerity. He can only demonstrate changed behavior over time. The question isn't whether you can trust him absolutely. It's whether you can accept the uncertainty while he builds a track record. That sounds exhausting. Rebuilding trust always is. That's why most people don't do it. They either forgive without requiring change, which leads to repeated betrayal, or they exit entirely. The middle path of provisional trust while observing behavioral change takes enormous emotional energy. I don't know if I have that energy. Then maybe your answer is already clear, and you're just reluctant to acknowledge it. I thought about that conversation while reviewing our Q1 financial projections. Tyler had put together impressive numbers showing the company's trajectory. We were on track to exceed our revenue goals. Client retention was at 94%. Employee satisfaction surveys showed significant improvement since the leadership restructuring. By every measurable metric, Apex Dynamics was thriving under my leadership. But professional success felt hollow when I returned each evening to a house that felt more like a museum of a failed relationship than a home. Nathan and I were cordial. We discussed company matters. We maintained the appearance of partnership. But we weren't intimate. We weren't connected. We were two people existing in parallel rather than together. February brought an unexpected complication. Sienna Park published an essay in a prominent tech publication titled, "The Invisible Women Building Tech Empires." The piece was ostensibly about female technical founders who get erased from their company's narratives. She mentioned Apex Dynamics by name, describing her time there as eye-opening regarding how companies systematically minimize women's contributions. The irony was almost funny. Sienna, who'd been promoted far beyond her qualifications through romantic involvement with my husband, was now positioning herself as a feminist advocate, calling out exactly the behavior she'd enabled. The essay went viral. My inbox flooded with interview requests from publications wanting my perspective. Several journalists directly asked if I'd comment on being erased from Apex's founding story. The narrative was writing itself, and I hadn't said a word. Nathan appeared in my office doorway looking stricken. "Have you seen Sienna's essay?" "I've seen it. Victoria, I'm so sorry. She's completely misrepresenting what happened. Making herself sound like some advocate for your recognition when she was actively part of the problem. She was part of the problem because you made her part of the problem. Don't blame her for opportunistically using the situation you created. What do we do? Should we issue a statement? Correct the record? We do nothing. Any response gives the story oxygen. Right now it's tech drama. If we respond, it becomes a war. Let it die naturally. But she's painting you as a victim who got erased and me as the villain who erased you. Are either of those characterizations inaccurate?" The question stopped him completely. He stood in my doorway, mouth slightly open, unable to formulate a response that wouldn't be either a lie or an admission. "I thought so," I said, turning back to my computer. "Close the door on your way out." The Sienna essay had one unexpected benefit. It prompted several major publications to reach out about telling my actual story. Forbes wanted a cover feature on female technical founders. TechCrunch offered a profile exploring the leadership restructuring at Apex. The Wall Street Journal proposed an investigation into how women's contributions get systematically minimized in tech startups. I declined all of them. Not because the stories weren't worth telling, but because I didn't want my personal drama becoming public entertainment. The restructuring at Apex was an internal matter. My marriage problems were private. The last thing I needed was journalists dissecting my relationship and company politics for content. Kira had different thoughts. You should tell your story. Other women need to hear it. They need to know that reclaiming power is possible. My story is messy and complicated. It's not inspirational. It's just survival. Survival is inspirational when so many women don't survive professionally. They get erased and stay erased. You fought back and won. That matters. I considered her perspective but ultimately maintained my silence. Perhaps someday I'd feel ready to discuss everything publicly. But not while I was still living it, still figuring out if my marriage was salvageable, still processing the betrayal and the victory and the uncertain future. March brought Texas weather's characteristic unpredictability. Warm mornings gave way to afternoon thunderstorms that shook our office windows. I stood watching one particularly violent storm, lightning illuminating downtown Austin in stark flashes, when Nathan knocked on my door. Do you have a minute? Come in. He entered carefully, holding a folder. I wanted to show you something before I present it to anyone else. The folder contained a comprehensive analysis of our business operations, identifying inefficiencies, and proposing streamlined processes. The work was thorough, thoughtful, and genuinely valuable. Nathan had clearly spent weeks on the analysis. This is excellent work, I said, genuinely impressed. Why are you showing me first? Because I want you to know I'm serious about excelling in my actual role. I'm not trying to expand my authority or undermine your position. I'm trying to be exceptional at what I'm actually good at. Business operations analysis and optimization. Exactly. This is where I add value. Not in technical visioning or platform development. In making the business side run efficiently so you can focus on innovation. I studied the document more carefully, noting the level of detail and consideration. When did you do this? Evenings. Weekends. I needed a project that wasn't about ego or positioning. Something that would actually help the company without stepping on anyone's territory. The humility was striking. This was Nathan stripped of bravado and pretense, focusing on genuine contribution rather than performance of importance. It was possibly the most attractive I'd found him in years. Present this at the next leadership meeting, I said. Tyler and Kira should see it. If we implement even half of these suggestions, we'll significantly improve operational efficiency. You're sure? I don't want you to think I'm overstepping. You're doing your job exceptionally well. That's not overstepping. That's exactly what I need from you. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or validation. He'd been working without certainty that his efforts mattered, and I'd just confirmed they did. After he left, I stood at my window watching the storm continue its assault on the city. Rain streaked the glass, blurring the skyline into impressionistic shapes. Somewhere in that blur was a path forward for Nathan and me. I just couldn't see it clearly yet. The leadership meeting where Nathan presented his operational analysis was transformative. Tyler and Kira both immediately recognized the value of his proposals. We spent 3 hours working through implementation details, building on Nathan's foundation with additional suggestions and modifications. By the end of the meeting, we had a comprehensive plan that would save the company approximately $300,000 annually in operational costs while improving efficiency across departments. It was Nathan's vision, but it became our collective execution. This is what partnership should look like, Tyler said as we wrapped up. Everyone operating in their strengths, building on each other's contributions. Kira nodded agreement. We function better as a team than any of us could individually. That's what makes this company special. I looked at Nathan across the conference table. He was watching me with an expression I'd seen years ago, back when we were building the company in that garage apartment. Pride in collective achievement. Joy in partnership. Satisfaction in creating something larger than ourselves. That evening, I came home to find Nathan cooking dinner. Not fancy, just pasta and salad, but the gesture was deliberate and thoughtful. "What's this?" I asked, setting down my bag. "A celebration. We did good work today." That felt worth acknowledging. We ate together at the kitchen table, discussing the implementation timeline for Nathan's proposals. The conversation flowed naturally, without the careful guardedness that had characterized our recent interactions. We were talking as partners again, not as adversaries maintaining professional courtesy. After dinner, Nathan cleared the dishes while I opened a bottle of wine. We moved to the back deck despite the evening chill, wrapped in blankets while watching the lake reflect the city lights. "Can I ask you something?" Nathan said after we'd been sitting in comfortable silence. "Go ahead. Do you think there's a version of our future where we're still married? Where we rebuild this into something sustainable?" I considered the question seriously, not rushing to answer. "I think there's a version where it's possible. Whether we reach that version depends on whether you can maintain this new dynamic. Whether I can trust that this Nathan is permanent rather than temporary performance. How do I prove it's permanent? Time. Consistency. Continued demonstration that you value partnership over hierarchy. There's no shortcut, Nathan. You broke something fundamental. Repair takes years, not months. I'm willing to put in the years. Are you? What if we're still figuring this out 3 years from now? What if I never fully trust you again? Are you willing to live with that uncertainty indefinitely?" He was quiet for a long time, considering. "Yes. Because the alternative is losing you entirely, and that's unacceptable." The declaration hung between us, sincere and vulnerable. I wanted to believe him. Part of me desperately wanted to fast forward through the uncertainty to some future where we'd resolved everything and were genuinely happy again. But the other part, the part that had been betrayed and diminished and nearly erased, remained cautious. Guarded. Unwilling to be hurt again. "I need more time," I said finally. "I know that's frustrating. But I need more time." "Then take it. I'm not going anywhere." We sat together under the Texas stars, two people trying to find their way back to each other while carrying the weight of everything that had fractured between them. The path forward remained unclear, but for the first time in months, it felt like a path might actually exist. Spring arrived with the aggressive enthusiasm Texas weather reserves for the season between freezing unpredictability and suffocating summer heat. April meant wildflowers covering the hill country in carpets of blue and orange, tourists clogging the highways to photograph bluebonnets, and temperatures that climbed into the 80s by afternoon. Apex Dynamics was preparing for our largest expansion yet, a move into California that would position us as a truly national healthcare analytics provider. The California strategy had been developing for months, a collaborative effort between Nathan's business development instincts and Kira's technical planning. We'd identified 3 major hospital systems in Los Angeles and San Francisco that were struggling with exactly the problems our platform solved. The potential revenue from California alone could push us past $30 million annually. Nathan had spent weeks cultivating relationships with decision-makers at these institutions. He'd flown to California 6 times, always keeping me informed about meetings and progress. The transparency was deliberate and consistent, a stark contrast to his previous operating style where I'd learn about major developments only when they were already decided. "I want your technical input before I make the final pitch to Cedars-Sinai," he said during one of our evening work sessions at home. We'd fallen into a pattern of reviewing company matters together after dinner, a restoration of the partnership dynamic that had defined our early years. I reviewed the technical specifications their IT leadership had requested. They're asking for integration with their existing EMR system. That's more complex than our standard implementation. Can we do it? We can. The question is whether we should. Custom integrations create ongoing maintenance obligations. If we're going to offer this to Cedars, we need to be prepared to offer it to every major California system. What if we productize it? Build the EMR integration as a standard feature rather than custom development? I considered the suggestion, my mind already mapping the architecture. That's actually brilliant. It increases our initial development timeline by about 3 months, but then we can offer seamless integration as a competitive advantage. Every hospital uses EMR systems. Making that connection frictionless could be a major differentiator. Nathan's face lit with the enthusiasm I remembered from our earliest days. This is what we do best. You see the technical possibilities. I see the business implications. Together we create something neither of us could build alone. The observation felt accurate and important. We'd lost that collaborative synergy when Nathan started believing his business vision was more valuable than my technical execution. Rediscovering it felt like finding something precious we'd misplaced and forgotten we needed. Kira and her development team spent April and May building the EMR integration feature. The technical challenge was substantial, requiring compatibility with 6 different EMR platforms used across major hospital systems. But by late May, we had a working prototype that demonstrated seamless data flow between our analytics platform and existing hospital infrastructure. Nathan's pitch to Cedars-Sinai in early June was masterful. I watched via video conference as he presented our platform capabilities, emphasizing the EMR integration as a unique feature that would eliminate the friction most analytics solutions created. The hospital's CFO and CIO asked technical questions I fielded directly, and the collaboration between Nathan's business presentation and my technical expertise convinced them completely. They signed a 5-year contract worth $8.3 million. Our largest single deal in company history. The celebration that evening was spontaneous and genuine. The entire leadership team gathered at a downtown restaurant, toasting the California breakthrough and the teamwork that had made it possible. Tyler gave a speech about how the restructured leadership was proving more effective than our previous configuration. Kira talked about the technical pride she felt in building something genuinely innovative. Nathan acknowledged that the success represented true partnership, where everyone's contributions were essential. I found myself genuinely happy in a way I hadn't been for over a year. The company was thriving. My authority was unquestioned. The team functioned cohesively. Everything I'd fought to protect and reclaim was secure and flourishing. Nathan drove us home that night, both of us slightly buzzed from celebration wine. The summer heat had faded to pleasant warmth, and we rode with the windows down, letting the night air wash over us. Today felt like old times, Nathan said as we pulled into our driveway. Like when we were building something impossible and somehow making it real. It did, I agreed. You were exceptional in that presentation. The way you wove together business value and technical capability, that's always been your gift. We walked into the house together, the evening's positive energy still surrounding us. In the kitchen, Nathan poured us water while I kicked off the uncomfortable heels I'd worn for the video conference. Victoria, he said, his tone shifting to something more serious. I want to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Do you think there's any chance we actually make it? That our marriage survives everything that happened? I leaned against the kitchen counter, considering the question I'd been avoiding answering definitively for months. I think we're different people than we were a year ago. The question isn't whether our old marriage survives. It's whether we can build a new one that acknowledges who we've become. What would that new marriage look like? Honest. Equal. Built on genuine respect rather than assumed hierarchy. A partnership where neither of us forgets the other's essential value. I can do that. I am doing that. You've been doing it for 6 months. Marriage requires doing it for decades. The test isn't whether you can change temporarily. It's whether this new version of you is permanent. Nathan set down his water glass and crossed the kitchen to stand in front of me. Not touching, but close enough that I could feel his presence completely. I know I can't prove permanence with words. I can only prove it with time. But Victoria, I need you to know something. Losing my CEO title was humbling. Accepting my reduced role was difficult. But none of that was the hard part. The hard part has been sleeping alone in our guest room, living beside you without being with you, seeing you every day while feeling the distance between us. That's been the real punishment for my mistakes. This isn't about punishment. I know. But it feels like it sometimes. Not because you're trying to hurt me, but because I'm living with the consequences of hurting you. The vulnerability in his admission was disarming. This wasn't the confident CEO who'd fired me so casually. This was someone genuinely reckoning with the damage he'd caused and the life he'd nearly destroyed. I'd been thinking about what Dr. Cartwright said, I told him. About how rebuilding trust requires accepting uncertainty. I can't know for certain that you won't revert to old patterns. You can't prove definitively that you've changed permanently. We either accept the uncertainty and move forward together, or we end things cleanly and move forward separately. What do you want to do? The question hung between us, enormous and consequential. I'd been avoiding a definitive answer for 8 months, hiding behind the excuse of needing more time. But time hadn't provided certainty. It had only provided evidence of Nathan's sustained behavioral change and my own persistent uncertainty. I want to try, I said finally. Not because I'm certain it will work. Not because I fully trust you again. But because what we built together matters enough to fight for. The company and the marriage. Both of them. Nathan's expression transformed, relief and joy mixing with something more cautious. You're sure? No. I'm not sure. But I'm willing to be uncertain together rather than certain alone. He reached for me then, slowly enough that I could refuse if I wanted. I didn't refuse. His arms wrapped around me, and for the first time in nearly a year, I allowed myself to lean into his embrace. It felt familiar and foreign simultaneously, like returning to a home that had been renovated in your absence. I won't waste this chance, he whispered against my hair. I promise you, Victoria. I won't waste it. Promises. We'd made so many over 15 years, some kept, some shattered. This new promise carried the weight of all the broken ones before it. Whether Nathan could actually honor it remained unknown. But standing in our kitchen with his arms around me and 8 months of sustained effort behind us, I chose to believe possibility existed. The transition from separation back to actual marriage happened gradually rather than dramatically. Nathan moved his things back into our bedroom that weekend, but we didn't immediately resume physical intimacy. We slept in the same bed, the middle distance between us slowly closing over weeks. The first time he held my hand while we slept felt monumental. The first kiss that wasn't just perfunctory goodbye felt like rediscovery. We started attending couples therapy with Dr. Cartwright, supplementing my individual sessions with joint work on our relationship patterns. The sessions were occasionally brutal, forcing us to confront the dynamics that had enabled Nathan's betrayal and my silence about the gradual erasure of my contributions. You both created this situation, Dr. Cartwright observed during one particularly difficult session. Nathan, you systematically undermined Victoria and justified it by believing your business role was more valuable than her technical role. But Victoria, you enabled that dynamic by not asserting your authority earlier. You let yourself be diminished because confrontation felt uncomfortable. So I'm responsible for my own erasure? I asked, feeling defensive. You're responsible for not protecting yourself sooner. There's a difference. Nathan's behavior was wrong. But your tolerance of that behavior allowed it to escalate. Both things can be true simultaneously. The insight was uncomfortable but accurate. I'd watched Nathan slowly shift from partner to authority figure, and I'd accommodated that shift because maintaining peace felt more important than demanding equality. The restructuring hadn't just been about reclaiming power Nathan had taken. It had been about claiming power I'd surrendered passively over years. Apex Dynamics continued its trajectory through the summer and fall. The California expansion succeeded beyond projections. We hired 30 additional employees to support the growth. Revenue projections for the year climbed to $32 million, more than double what we'd been generating when Nathan tried to restructure me into irrelevance. Marcus Liu called me in October with another acquisition offer. Victoria, I'm bringing this to you because fiduciary duty requires it, but I already know your answer. A major healthcare conglomerate is offering $95 million for Apex Dynamics. They want to integrate our platform into their nationwide hospital network. Still not interested. I figured. But 95 million is substantial enough that I needed to present it formally. Marcus, no amount of money makes selling attractive. This company is my legacy. It represents 15 years of innovation and problem solving. I'm not handing that over to some conglomerate that will slowly suffocate everything unique about our approach. What if they offered you complete operational autonomy? Keep running the platform development, maintain your team, just operate under their corporate umbrella? They'd say that during acquisition, then gradually implement oversight and control until autonomy was theoretical rather than actual. I've watched enough tech acquisitions to know how this story ends. Fair enough. I'll decline on behalf of the board. After hanging up, I mentioned the offer to Nathan during our evening review session. His response was immediate and unequivocal. Absolutely not. Selling would destroy everything we've built. The platform works because it's nimble and innovative. Corporate ownership would strangle that. Even for 95 million? Even for 95 million. Some things matter more than money, Vic. This company is one of them. The alignment felt significant. A year ago, Nathan might have pushed for the sale, attracted by the liquidity and the ego satisfaction of an 8-figure exit. Now he understood that the company's value transcended financial metrics. November brought Thanksgiving again, full circle from the previous year when Nathan and I had shared an awkward holiday dinner while separated but cohabiting. This year, we hosted both our families in Austin, filling our house with the chaos and warmth of parents and siblings who'd been wondering if our marriage would survive. My mother pulled me aside while Nathan was carving the turkey. You look happy, sweetheart. Actually happy, not just performing happiness. I am. We're figuring it out. Slowly, but genuinely. What changed? He remembered why he married me. I remembered that I deserved to be seen clearly. We both got humbled in different ways. She hugged me, her relief palpable. Marriage is long. You'll have multiple versions of it over decades. This is just one chapter. The observation resonated. Nathan and I weren't reconstructing our original marriage. We were building something different that acknowledged our evolution. The power dynamics had permanently shifted. The hierarchy had been dismantled. What remained was something more balanced and honest than what we'd had before. December brought the company holiday party, held at a downtown venue with views of the Capitol building lit for the season. Nearly 100 employees attended, celebrating a year that had seen dramatic transformation and remarkable success. I gave a speech thanking everyone for their dedication and adaptability through significant change. Nathan spoke as well, his remarks focused on appreciating the team's excellence and acknowledging that great companies require everyone operating at their highest capacity. He specifically praised Kira's technical leadership, Tyler's financial stewardship, and my strategic vision. No claiming credit. No positioning himself as the singular leader. Just honest recognition of collaborative achievement. Kira approached me near the end of the evening. You know what's different this year? Everyone's relaxed. Last year's party felt performative. Like we were all pretending everything was fine while the leadership was fracturing. This year actually feels genuine. That's because it is genuine. We're not performing partnership anymore. We're actually functioning as a team. It's made an enormous difference. Morale is higher. Productivity is up. People trust the leadership direction because they can see all of you working together. The validation mattered. The restructuring could have destroyed company culture, creating resentment and instability. Instead, it had created clarity and improved functionality. Sometimes disruption served necessary purposes. Nathan found me on the venue's balcony after the party had largely dispersed. Austin's December night was cool but not cold, comfortable jacket weather rather than actual winter. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, and I leaned back against his chest, both of us looking out at the city lights. What are you thinking? He asked. That a year ago I was standing in the rain watching our company implode while you panicked and begged me to fix what you'd broken. Now we're here. Successful. Together. Functional. You were magnificent that day, you know. Terrifying and magnificent. I'd never seen you fully unleash your power before. I hadn't either. I'd always modulated my authority to maintain peace. That day, peace wasn't an option anymore. I'm glad you fought back. I needed to be stopped before I destroyed everything that actually mattered. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching Austin pulse with its characteristic energy below us. The city had grown and changed dramatically during our 15 years here, transforming from a quirky college town into a major tech hub. We'd grown and changed alongside it, our company expanding with the city's evolution. Do you ever regret it? Nathan asked quietly. Taking control so definitively? You could have handled the restructuring more gently, let me save face publicly. No. I don't regret it. Gentle wouldn't have worked. You needed to be confronted with reality directly and undeniably. And honestly, Nathan, I needed to prove to myself that I could actually wield the power I held. For years I'd been theoretically in control but practically deferential. That day, I stopped being theoretical. It fundamentally changed us. For the better. We're more honest now. More balanced. The old version of our marriage wasn't sustainable. It was built on assumptions that became toxic over time. He tightened his arms around me. I love this version of you. The one who takes control and demands respect and refuses to be diminished. I should have loved that version all along, but I was too caught up in my own narrative to see clearly. We both see more clearly now. That's what almost losing everything teaches you. The holiday season passed with genuine warmth rather than performed harmony. We spent Christmas with Nathan's family in Ohio, where his mother privately told me she was proud of how I'd stood up for myself. Nathan has always been charismatic enough to convince people of anything. He needed someone who wouldn't be swayed by charm alone. You're good for him, Victoria. You keep him honest. New Year's arrived with optimism and ambitious planning. Apex Dynamics was projecting $40 million in revenue for the coming year. We were exploring expansion into the Northeast market. The platform enhancements Kira's team had developed were generating interest from international hospital networks. The company I'd nearly lost was flourishing beyond anything we'd imagined in that garage apartment 15 years ago. Nathan and I stood on our back deck at midnight, watching fireworks bloom over the lake. The neighborhood celebration was enthusiastic and slightly chaotic, a very Austin expression of New Year optimism. What do you want for this year? Nathan asked as the fireworks finale exploded in cascading color. Continued growth for the company. Stability in our marriage. Maybe actually taking a vacation for the first time in 3 years. Where would you want to go? Somewhere with no cell service. A beach where the most demanding thing I need to think about is whether to read or nap. He laughed. That sounds perfect. Let's do it. Maybe spring, after we finalize the Northeast contracts. The idea of planning a future together felt less tentative than it had months ago. We were rebuilding not just our marriage but our ability to envision shared tomorrows. The trust wasn't complete, probably would never be complete in the absolute sense. But it was functional. Sufficient. Strong enough to support forward movement. January brought a surprising email from Sienna Park. The message was brief but appeared genuine in its apology. I wanted to reach out and say I'm sorry for my role in what happened at Apex. I was young and flattered by attention from someone successful, and I didn't fully consider the harm I was contributing to. Your essay last year made me reflect on how I'd enabled exactly the kind of erasure I claimed to be critiquing. That was hypocritical and wrong. I hope you and the company are thriving. You deserve all the success you've built. I showed the email to Nathan. What do you think? Genuine contrition or reputation management? He read it carefully. Probably some of both. Does it matter which? Not really. The damage is done and repaired. Her apology doesn't change anything. Are you going to respond? I thought about it, then typed a brief reply. Thank you for the apology. I appreciate the reflection it represents. Best wishes in your future endeavors. Forgiveness without reconciliation. Acknowledgement without renewed connection. The appropriate response to someone who'd been complicit in my professional diminishment but wasn't worth sustained anger. The spring brought the Northeast expansion we'd been planning. Boston, Philadelphia, and New York hospital systems all signed contracts with Apex Dynamics. The geographic diversity strengthened our market position dramatically. We were no longer a regional company that had expanded beyond Texas. We were a national healthcare analytics provider with coast-to-coast presence. Marcus Liu called me in April to discuss the company's trajectory. "Victoria, you've tripled the company's value in 18 months. The restructuring that seemed potentially catastrophic has instead been transformative. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I'm running the company the way it should have been run from the beginning. Technical innovation driving business strategy rather than the reverse. It's working spectacularly. The board is unanimously impressed with your leadership." The validation felt good but unnecessary. I no longer needed external confirmation of my value. The restructuring had taught me that my worth existed independent of others' recognition. Nathan's betrayal had accidentally given me an enormous gift, absolute certainty in my own capabilities and authority. Our second anniversary of the restructuring passed quietly in June. Nathan and I had dinner at the same downtown restaurant where we'd celebrated the Cedars-Sinai contract. Over wine and appetizers, we reflected on the journey. 2 years ago, I thought my life was ending, I said. Career destroyed, marriage shattered, everything I'd built stolen. Now we're here. Stronger than we've ever been. 2 years ago, I was an arrogant fool who thought charm mattered more than substance. You taught me a brutal but necessary lesson. Do you resent me for it? Honestly? He considered the question seriously. Sometimes I resent the humiliation. The way it felt to be publicly demoted and restructured. But I don't resent you for doing it. You were right, and I was wrong. Sometimes the truth is just that simple. What about us? Do you resent the time it took to rebuild our marriage? No. Because what we have now is better than what we had before. The old version was built on imbalanced power and unquestioned assumptions. This version is built on honest recognition of each other's value. That stronger foundation. I reached across the table and took his hand. I love you. Not the version of you I married 15 years ago, but the version sitting across from me now. The one who learned humility and partnership. That version is worth fighting for. I love you too. The version who refused to be erased. The version who took control and demanded respect. That's the woman I should have been seeing all along. We drove home through Austin's summer evening, the heat finally relenting as the sun set behind the western hills. Our house sat in comfortable familiarity, no longer a space of tension and separation but actually a home again. Later that night, lying in bed with Nathan's arm around me and his breathing evening into sleep, I thought about power and partnership and the strange journey that had brought us here. I'd started as an equal partner who'd gradually accepted diminishment. I'd been forced into reclaiming authority I'd allowed to atrophy. I discovered that wielding power definitively didn't make me cruel or unfeminine or any of the things I'd unconsciously feared. It just made me effective. The woman who'd stood in the rain watching Apex Dynamics burn felt like a different person from who I'd become. That woman had been reactive, wounded, exercising power from a place of hurt. The woman I was now understood that power was a tool, not a weapon. It could be used to protect, build, and create rather than just destroy. Nathan had tried to replace me with someone younger and more deferring. Instead, he'd forced me to become the most authentic version of myself. The irony was perfect and complete. I owned 58% of a company worth over $100 million. I was CEO of a healthcare analytics platform that was genuinely improving patient outcomes across America. I had a marriage that had been broken and rebuilt into something more honest and balanced. I had professional respect that was earned rather than granted. Everything Nathan had tried to take from me, I'd reclaimed and expanded beyond his imagination. The final lesson was the most important one. Nobody could erase me unless I allowed it. Nobody could diminish my contributions unless I accepted that diminishment. The power had always been mine. I just needed to be forced to use it. Nathan stirred beside me, pulling me closer in his sleep. I settled against him, comfortable and certain. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The company would continue growing. Our marriage would continue evolving. Nothing was guaranteed or permanent. But I no longer needed guarantees. I had something better, absolute knowledge of my own capacity and worth. That couldn't be taken, couldn't be stolen, couldn't be undermined. I'd pulled 58% from his empire because it was my empire first. He'd just forgotten that fundamental truth. Now he remembered. Now we both remembered. And that made all the difference. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.